Former PSG and Argentina star Ezequiel Lavezzi was having a great time, surrounded by his family and friends. But now, the retired star forward is restless. He's sure someone has broken into his home. This is no time to second-guess oneself. He heard them loud and clear. In what now seems like a blur, Lavezzi will get up from his bed, get into a fight with the intruder, and successfully defend his family. In the heat of the moment, he didn't feel anything. But now that his adrenaline levels are back to normal, he is well aware that he's bleeding from his midsection. Then again, that's nothing compared to the sharp, twinging pain he's feeling around his neck. It's 7 a.m. in the morning now. Lavezzi's brother is outside, talking to the police personnel from Section 13 of Arenas de Jose Ignacio. After a quick assessment of the crime scene, the police come to the conclusion that, instead of them, a medical team is required on the spot. Because, as their findings show, there was no crime to speak of, no intruder, nor a life-threatening altercation. A team of paramedics responds to the police's call and take Lavezzi to Punta del Este, more specifically to Cantagril Sanatorium.
Yo lo que les puedo confirmar es que él se cayó, tuvo un traumatismo en un evento social y se fracturó la clavícula. Eso es por lo que está ingresado acá. Él se encuentra estable.
12 hours after he was admitted to the Cantagril Sanatorium, Ezequiel Lavezzi was discharged. The wound in his abdomen wasn't deep, and there was not much left to do about his fractured collarbone. He couldn't have been better physically, but his family knew what he needed more was mental and emotional support. That's why they wanted to bring him to Rosario as soon as possible, where he'd be in the care of his mother and son. The family's initial plan was to bring Lavezzi to Buenos Aires with a medical plane, and then take him to Rosario, but they couldn't arrange a flight with a medical plane. The very next day, on December 21st, Lavezzi was at Capitán de Corbeta Carlos Curbelo International Airport to take a private plane to Argentina. According to the Lavezzi family's lawyer, Lucas Bertero, Ezequiel Lavezzi had a psychiatric attack on board. That's when he started shouting praises and requests to God. Lavezzi's physical health also deteriorated on board, and medical staff spent an hour reviving and stabilizing him. Although it was difficult, he was finally able to join his mother and son. The Argentinian was now in a stable condition, but the news about his mysterious night was getting more and more out of hand. El Observador, among other media outlets from Uruguay, suggested that the Argentinian was injured during a family feud that revolved around money. Around the same time, Lavezzi's former agent was being accused of bamboozling him in a fraud scheme that allegedly set back the player a whopping 25 million euros. Could someone from his very own family be a part of the said scheme? The response from the family couldn't be swifter. When Thai Sea Sport contacted the members of the Lavezzi family for an article they would publish the very next day, the story concerning Lavezzi changing a light bulb and falling on a piece of glass furniture resurfaced. Like a proper urban legend, the events that took place in the early hours of December 20th started to change over time. In one retelling, Lavezzi had stumbled when a family member tried to take a kitchen knife from his hands. In another, the former player had inflicted damage on himself using scissors. A few weeks later, just when everyone thought that strange story was finally over, a brand new chapter started, and this one was way more worrying than the ones that came before it. Just 18 days after his mysterious injury and hospitalization in Uruguay, when his fans and the international football community were waiting for happier news coming from the Argentinian, things took a darker turn. On January 6, 2024, Ezequiel Lavezzi was admitted to Dharma Psychiatric Center in Buenos Aires. An article published on La Nación the same day Lavezzi was admitted to Dharma suggested that the player was rushed into the clinic after an overdose. The family was once again quick to react, and this time it was Lavezzi's son Thomas who took to Instagram to give an update on his father. "My dad is fine and is undergoing treatment. Stop inventing things that are not true. He doesn't have any overdose or anything they say." This visceral reaction didn't have the desired effect on the narrative, and for another week, Lavezzi was seen as this out-of-touch maverick. He was known to enjoy night outs and a few drinks back in his playing days, so the story, at least for people who wanted to believe, checked out. It took another week and an unexpected confidant to set things right. On January 11th, Mauricio D'Alessandro, one of Ezequiel Lavezzi's lawyers, was contacted for a news update on the player, and it was only then the world got to know what was at stake. A very concerned D'Alessandro explained the situation in depth. In the middle of the night, he heard a noise and thought there were people in the house. That's how the incident happened. When he left the hospital, he tried to overcome the crisis alone, but he didn't succeed. That's why he went to this establishment. It's not a pathology that can be cured by just saying, "Don't go out dancing." It requires medical treatment. At the time of recording, Ezequiel Lavezzi is still under treatment for hypomania, a mental and behavioral disorder in which a person's mood changes abnormally for no apparent contextual reason. The Argentinian is expected to pass a medical at the end of January, and it will be up to him and his doctors to decide whether or not treatment at home would be the better option going forward. Although he's not a medical expert by any means, Lavezzi's lawyer, D'Alessandro, had described him as only a danger to himself. The fact that the former star accepted a 21-day treatment suggests that he'd be ready to prolong his stay at the clinic if it deemed necessary. Everyone in his entourage is counting the days to see Ezequiel Lavezzi back amongst them and in high spirits, and the feeling is mutual among the international football community. Two of his former sides, San Lorenzo and Napoli, have already shown their support for Pocho. Former Albiceleste teammate, legendary defender, and Inter Milan's vice president Javier Zanetti has also voiced his concern and support for Lavezzi. In an interview on Channel 13 El Trece, Zanetti said, "The mind is fundamental, more important than the body. Today players have many more tools than we had. You have to help him. You don't have to leave him alone. All the people who are going through problems of this magnitude are certainly asking for help, and we must give them a hand." Like every football fan, we at Oh My Goal also would like to extend our best wishes to Ezequiel Lavezzi and hope that the helping hand Zanetti talks about is near.